Hey everybody, for this week's opening skit, I'm going to do something everybody loves to do in their pastime, read the Bible. Don't push the back button yet, it is relevant to the chapter. Kind of. Zechariah 14:12. And the Lord will send a plague on all the nations that fought against Jerusalem. Their people will become like walking corpses, their flesh rotting away. The eyes will rot in their sockets, and their tongues will rot in their mouths. Now keep that in mind. And then just prepare yourself for Bleach chapter 501 and all the horrors that lie within it. Here, hit a review Bleach chapter number 501 entitled Here, Fear, Here. Here, fear, here, huh? That's what, how do you hear fear exactly? Shut up down there! Oh my God, I swear to God, the torture dungeon was installed before we moved into the house. And those people, they just still like to complain. Anyway, before we begin the chapter itself, let me just state one thing, that no, we do not find out who the mysterious guy was that held the sword up to Urahara. We get a slight one-panel reference to that, and that's all we get. So, you know, hang your disappointed faces right now. I'm sorry, but that's just not how it's going to go. I kind of expected Kubo was going to do this. Like, there's like 3 ways he could have done it. He could have not have showed it at all. He could have started off the chapter by showing it, or he could have waited to the very end of the chapter to show it. But he picked the former ones, so, you know, whatever. The chapter begins with Ichigo still stuck in Kurji's jail cage, which kind of implies the fact that even though Kurji may be dead, maybe the jail's still going to stick around, or, of course, maybe Kurji's not dead at all still. We're not exactly sure. I figured it might have something to do with, like, the Fullbring-based abilities. Like, if the Fullbringer dies, the power disappears. So I don't know if that's the same with Quincy's, but whatever. He states that even Getsuga doesn't work, and, have to mention the fact here that this is not the manga stream translation. This is not the official one. This is... I looked high and low for a translation that did not include this error, but I could not find one. So, of course, in this chapter, we get the famous error, Gekka Tensho. You know, now, I've said this before, I'm not exactly sure how people translate chapters. I don't know if they just do it through computers, or if they actually go in by hand and change every single line of dialogue. I'm not sure how the process works. I'm sure it's different for each person that does it. But if you read Bleach, you know it's not pronounced Gekka Tensho. So I don't know. Anyway, moving on. As he shouts in disappointment that he can't escape the cage, his cell phone buzzes and he notices that the call between Kisuke Urahara has been disconnected. So that's the only thing we get implying what was going on the other end with Urahara and mysterious person with the sword. That's all we get in this chapter. I don't know. Something else here is that the Research and Development Institute, I don't know if the call is still active, because it says call, but I don't know if it's like the call still going on, like they're still on the other end, or the call just got, you know, disconnected like Urahara's. But if it is still there, that would imply that whatever the puppeteer Quincy is doing over there, that maybe they're still active for the time being, or maybe they haven't completely destroyed the building yet. Yeah, whatever's going on with that in the puppeteer/jester Quincy. We'll be getting more on that down the line. So Ichigo shouts even more in disappointment. We get the title page. Then we cut over to Renji and Byakuya's fight against As Nodt. Byakuya comes up with the idea that he's going to attack her, while Renji stands behind him and analyzes what his abilities are. Wait, As Nodt is a guy, right? Or maybe it's a girl? Was it confirmed? Okay, you know, screw it. I need a shonen cliche for this. Shonen cliche number 5. Androgynous as hell characters. And Renji states the obvious of why doesn't Byakuya be the one that stand back and analyze As Nodt while Renji attacks him, because Byakuya is obviously the stronger one with more experience. And Byakuya responds to this by stating he doesn't think Renji's intelligent enough. Well, fuck you, man. You know, it's odd. I changed that dialogue around to make it seem more humorous, but I think what's even more funnier is what he actually says, which is he agrees with him. He says, yeah, you're probably right. I'm not intelligent enough to do that. So then we finally get a look into exactly what As Nodt's ability is exactly. Byakuya's limbs start to freeze up. He suspects it's poison, but As Nodt states it's not. And in actuality, her ability, his ability, whatever, is fear itself. Well, are you serious? As Nodt's ability is centered around fear. Wow. Holy crap. Up to this point in the story, I was debunking on the fact of As Nodt's ability being focused around puppies and unicorns. Alright, I said puppies and unicorns. Go do the gag. But wait, could you at least make the unicorn seem a little bit badass? I need to maintain my male demographic at least a little bit. Okay, so for the rest of the chapter, I guess As Nodt gets possessed by Kurji's spirit because she begins to monologue a lot. Now before we continue, I don't want to say that she monologues just by explaining her power, because that's not monologuing, that's plot development. There's a difference. What I consider monologuing is when you just spend, like, the majority just talking about stuff that's not really tantamount to your power. It's just kind of, random filler. Like, for example, an entire panel is taken up just by explaining all the different things that people fear in battle. Though As Nodt does mention that Byakuya is pretty good at resisting his power with just his will. And because of Byakuya's resistance through his willpower, he is able to land a hit on As Nodt. But I'm guessing he activated the Bleach ability for the defensive because he doesn't seem that all harmed by it. Once again, because the technology division was destroyed unexpectedly, the odds of all the other captains getting information on the Bleach is very unlikely now, especially since Ichigo's trapped, technology division's screwed, Kisuke is apparently screwed. We're not really sure on that yet. But, yeah, anyway, he resists it. Byakuya then goes into a little bit of an inner monologue with Rukia and states that he was never really immune to fear. I've never repressed my fear. I have acknowledged fear during my fights and gained the strength to defeat it and go forward. Fear is just... Ah! What the fuck is that abomination? Ha! Oh, hold on. Having a third heart attack. One moment. There we go. Zombie Rukia. It's not real. It's just a figment of my imagination. Fire! Okay. So, Kubo found it necessary to, for some unexplained reason, have Zombie Rukia in this chapter. And, I will admit, though, it is pretty badass. I have to admit right there. Kubo, props, man. That was epic. I mean, there has never been a moment in a Bleach chapter recently where I literally just... I clapped at the monitor. I'm just like, Zombie Rukia. Wow. I mean, it's funny just because a few days ago I had a live stream where I was talking about like the zombie apocalypse and the different kinds of like apocalypses there could be, and I was just, it's just funny that that got put in there. And Shojiro fell down. Shojiro was scared so much he died again. That is just incredible. Well, anyway, moving on with the chapter, I'm just going to leave that there because it's annoying to get back up. But anyway, moving on with the chapter. I don't know if that's implying, like, Byakuya's one fear is Rukia turning into a zombie. I know it's implying that he's afraid of Rukia dying or going away from him, but, I'm just gonna move beyond it. Zombie Rukia. That's all you need to say. Zombie Rukia. That needs to be a meme. Just make that a meme on the internet. Zombie Rukia. And we'll be good to go, okay? I'll even start it. Here you go. So I'm guessing it's implied that As Nodt used its ability to show that image to Byakuya, like that was like bring his worst fear to the surface, and in that time managed to stab him directly through the chest, actually all the way through the body. You know what, actually that resembles a lot like the wound he gave Tsukishima, remember? Because, yeah, it's right through the back. I would make the, hole in his chest as big as a volleyball joke, but, he is a Shinigami, so it's okay for him to have a hole in the chest as big as a volleyball because he's not a regular human. But, yeah, so that kind of happened. So As Nodt continues the monologue about how fear is not really something that can be overcome, and that true fear is more like a primordial thing that's, like, buried in our instincts ever since, like, the dawn of man. We just can't get rid of it. That's basically the sum up anyway. Continues his little nightmare show by having Byakuya covered in flies. You know what, actually, flies are not that scary. In fact, I like bugs. In fact, that fly in particular seems to be something similar to the takanade fly. The takanade fly has 13 species in North America. It's about the size of a standard bumblebee. Okay, fine, you didn't want to hear Insectology 101. But, yeah, I guess that's what Byakuya fears. Two things Byakuya fears in this world. Rukia turning into a zombie, and giant mother-effing flies. Wouldn't have guessed, but here you are. Byakuya regains consciousness, tries to attack As Nodt, who unveils the medallion he used to seal Byakuya's Bankai. And then, the next panel we get... Oh, a cherry blossom, isn't that nice? You know, it's so funny that Kubo would have a cherry blossom right after that, because, you know, Byakuya's Bankai involves cherry blossoms, so it's kind of like a metaphor. And yeah, I'm being sarcastic again, aren't I? Yeah, I think I'm going to call this one Shonen Cliché number 41, Metaphorical Panel Changes. And this happens a lot in, you know, Bleach in particular, but usually the general gist is... you know, when someone starts a sentence and then the scene changes to somewhere else and they indirectly finish the sentence. A lot of times what happens is a character will be talking about somebody and then they'll flash over to that character who's like, you know, they're sneezing because in Japan, you know, if you sneeze, I guess that means someone's talking about you. So that happens a lot. In this scene, it's of course a reference to As Nodt using Byakuya's Bankai against him, except we don't see it. It just cuts over to Rukia, who sees a cherry blossom, which is indicating that. See what I mean? No. Okay, I'm moving on anyway. The last scene of the chapter, we indeed cut back to Byakuya, who's being cut down by Zenbone Sakura, and he falls. Is Byakuya dead? Probably not, because he's a main character, but then again, last arc, you never know. Kubo, you know, serious shit got real. Anyway, that's the way the chapter ends. Big reveal in this chapter that we all know, we suspected it anyway, is that the Quincy's, after stealing the Bankai, are able to use it against the Shinigami themselves, apparent in this chapter. We don't exactly know how that still affects the Shikai at all, because at that last scene, it looked like Byakuya was going to use his Shikai, but he couldn't. Referencing back to, you know, maybe the Zanpakuto spirits were stolen as well. Not sure on that. As for Renji, as for Ichigo in particular, he's still trapped in the cage. As for what's going on with Renji in the background, I'm not exactly sure what he's going to do now that he knows what As Nodt's ability is. It's fear. Everybody has a kind of fear, and I'm guessing that Renji's worst fear is probably going to be something similar to Byakuya, where he's afraid of losing Rukia, because, spoiler alert, in case you're not aware of this, Renji has a crush on Rukia. Just didn't know if you knew that, but there you go. So that's a possibility. Cutting back over to Ichigo, still trapped in the Garganta. You know, once again, I think the only way he's going to get out of this is if whoever, you know, had the sword to Urahara saves him, or if, like I said, if Kurji is truly dead, maybe then it'll disappear. Not 100% on that, though. I have to also mention a neat little thing about the chapter title itself. It was Here, Fear, Here, which that's, of course, referencing As Nodt's ability is fear, but I also found it interesting that going back to last chapter, when Ichigo was listening on the cell phone to all the people, all the Shinigami fighting, I guess that would be a way of hearing fear, too. That's just something I just came up with, like a reference to last chapter. The zombie Rukia thing definitely did it for me, if nothing else. That's like the prime. Last chapter's big event was Kurji getting cut down and the big reveal with the guy with the sword. We don't know who it is yet. This one was definitely zombie Rukia. I don't think Byakuya is dead. I don't. I mean, it might be the last arc, but he's like a main character. He's been a mainstay with the series ever since like almost the very beginning, since like chapter 50. So I don't think he's gonna die yet. He might be incapacitated for a time. I'm terrible at deducing injuries on this show. So I don't know if he lost an arm or something. His uniform's all, you know, shredded to hell, but I don't know if he lost any appendages or anything. I'm usually not that good at explaining that sort of thing. But, and one more thing, going back to the other Sternritters, we're not 100% sure, but the general consensus is that Jester Quincy's ability was Puppeteer, or maybe a Puppet Master, or Marionette, or something like that. See, in the last chapter, when Kurji revealed he was Jay, it was Jailer, like he's a person that jails. So I found it a little bit odd that, you know, As Nodt was just fear, because maybe like, you know, Marionette, like, well, what are we doing by here? Are we just doing by emotions? Or are we going by, you know, people in charge of something else? Like Marionette is a person that controls puppets. Jailer is a person that controls, you know, jailing. And that's just fear. So just a difference in, you know, like the way it's pronounced there. I'm just stating, you know, whatever. But, yeah, everyone figured out As Nodt's was fear. I must have gotten, like at least a dozen comments in the last video. Like, As Nodt's definitely fear, As Nodt's definitely fear, As Nodt's definitely fear. Apparently Kubo heard it because, it was revealed in this chapter. But anyway, that's the end of that. Tekking101, thanks for watching the video anyway. Tekking101 signing out. See you, everybody. Zombie Rukia! The end times are nigh, people! Grab a weapon! Arm yourselves against the evil homunculi!